The Utah Jazz. I'm getting right into it because I don't know what to do for an intro. Last year their record was 37-45. They were the 12th seed in the West. Lauri Markkanen was an all-star, and Walker Kessler had an amazing rookie year. Overall, they did pretty decent, but not good enough to make the playoffs. But they weren't that far out. They were only like 3 or 4 games out, so they were still a really good team. And as you know, I did write down the depth chart and notes. I'm not going to get into that yet, though. I'm still going to just talk about the overall team. This team is not horrible. Actually, they have a pretty decent core. If you look at the starting lineup, they got Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler. And then off the bench, they got Chris Dunn, Ochai Agbaji, I don't know how to say his name. Taylor Hendricks. This is actually one thing I want to mention about the team, but I'll bring it up later. Lucas Samanich, and then Kelly Olynyk, and then Taylor Horton-Tucker, Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, Simon Fatija, and blah, blah, blah. Omer Yurtseven. That's their team. And honestly, it's a pretty good team. They have tons of decent role players. Not as many, because when I look at teams that have a bunch of great role players, the number one team for that is the Nets. The Nets have a stockpile of role players who are really, really good at what they do, just not good enough to be the number one option on the championship team. And the Jazz are like that, except, actually they're pretty much exactly like that. They have Lauri Markkanen, who really was a role player before last year when he became an all-star. Colin Sexton, who at most has really, really good or pretty decent starter potential. But he still has been pretty good in the years he's played. I remember when he was in Cleveland, the one time he dropped 42 on the Nets in an overtime game and won, which was actually, it surprised everybody. He was cooking them. That was clean. Jordan Clarkson, who has proven that he's a pretty good role player. John Collins, who actually can be a pretty good starter. And then Walker Kessler, who was a rookie last year and had an amazing rookie season. And I'm pretty sure he might have been legit top 3 rookie of the year voting. No, he wasn't. It was Paolo. I forgot the full rookie of the year votes. But he wasn't top. I don't think he was top. Anyways, point being, this team overall has tons of young talent. That's the first thing I mentioned in the notes. Tons of young talent. The only problem with having tons of young talent is you gotta worry about who's gonna get more minutes, who's gonna get more opportunities, and who's gonna have to take a smaller role. And there's a lot of guys I see on this team getting lost in the shuffle, like Taylor Horton-Tucker and Ochai Agbaji. And I like both of those guys, and they're great. Honestly, they have tons of potential, just like everybody else on the team. But I can see them getting lost in the shuffle. Because of my next point, I absolutely loved this team's draft. They picked 3 of my favorite rookies in the entire draft. Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Taylor Hendricks. I had two of those guys going in the top 14. But they got all of them. They might have gotten Taylor Hendricks in the lottery, but they got most. I can't remember what they did, but they got most of them outside the lottery. And Keontae George, I think, was the 16th pick. That is a steal. Keontae George, I'm telling you right now, he is that guy. I was watching his college highlights, and he was cooking. He is an amazing shooter, great shot creator. He's really good. He's really good. I remember when I was doing my scouting report for him, I literally compared him to a prime James Harden. And I can't hold too high standards for him because that is a ridiculous standard to hit. But I still have really high hopes for him because I think he's actually gonna be amazing. But then you look at the other rookies. Taylor Hendricks, I had him originally going, I think, 7th to the Pacers. Because the Pacers, they needed a power forward, or a forward in general. And they chose Jarris Walker. And Jarris Walker, everybody said he was a great fit for the Pacers. Me personally, I would have liked the pick of Taylor Hendricks better because he's a great shooter, and you want to put great shooters around guys who can get to the basket, or guys who can play make, like Tyrese, and guys who can get to the basket, like Ben Mathurin. So I thought this team could, especially because if they did add another shooter to the rotation, they could legit run a ridiculous shooting lineup. Tyrese, Ben, Buddy, Taylor, and Miles Turner, shooting-wise, that is ridiculous. So I really liked the idea of Taylor Hendricks going to the Pacers, but then he ended up in Utah. And I don't know about the fit here in Utah, especially because this team got like 20 bigs. And I mean, their big depth is great, because when Walker Kessler, Kelly Olynyk, John Collins, all of them are part of your big man rotation, that's honestly pretty decent. Like Omer Yurtseven was a backup, a solid backup for the Heat, and he's their third string center. So that really shows how good this team is when it comes to bigs, and also they're just an overall tall team, because Lauri Markkanen and Taylor Hendricks are both guys who can run the 3 or run the 4, but they're running the 3. Or at least that's how it looked on. That's how I put it in my depth chart. But they could legit run the 3 in a lineup like this. So I really like the depth with this team, especially even the guard depth is amazing, because Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Chris Dunn, who is an interesting pickup in free agency. We'll see how he does. Taylor Horton Tucker, Keontae George, Ochai Bryce Sensen. Man, I love this team. They're young talent. This is definitely a team I'd want to watch purely because of their rookies. Because I really like their rookies and I really believe in their rookies. I didn't watch much of them last year because I didn't think they'd be good. I didn't think Lauri Markkanen would have a breakout year like he did. But he ended up exceeding my expectations completely. There's a reason I'm doing this team this early, because so far we did the 2 worst teams, 1 in each conference. And I'm sad to say this team is next. I love this team. I absolutely love them. But they're not good compared to the rest of the West. I mean, you got Lauri Markkanen, you got John Collins, you got Colin Sexton, you got Walker Kessler. One question that I had, which is also in my notes. I'm going down through my notes. Lauri Markkanen had an amazing year last year, and nobody expected it. Lauri Markkanen was just a solid role player, and I mean, he had potential when the Bulls drafted him, but he didn't really act on that potential. So eventually, he was like going around the league, not really around the league, but he went to the Cavs, and when the Cavs got him, they traded him to the Jazz in the Donovan Mitchell trade. And of course, the Cavs got Donovan Mitchell, so overall it seemed like they won. But then again, the Jazz got Lauri Markkanen, and Lauri Markkanen showed out, surprising everybody, averaging 20 plus points a game. I had him almost on my All-NBA team, and he was an all-star. So he showed out for them, and it was amazing, man. You love to see Lauri cooking, and it's just, my only question is, can he keep that up for 2 years in a row? Because we've seen this from guys in the past. Jeremy Grant, of course, didn't have as good of a season as Lauri did. But Jeremy Grant got traded to a tanking team where he was the number 1 option. And he cooked. And he was averaging like 20 plus points a game on that Pistons team. And he was doing really good. But then he got... and he's still a really good player. He just never really got to that point where he was like he was in Detroit. Because in Detroit, he was the number 1 option. He was cooking. And then now he's like a solid starter / role player. I mean, he got big money in free agency, but he's not like he was in Detroit. And the same thing, I guess Victor Oladipo's situation is different because injuries happened. But Victor Oladipo, he was a solid role player. Then he went off, and he was averaging 20 plus points a game. He brought the Pacers to the playoffs, lost to LeBron, got injured, and ever since then he's been a decent role player. Not really that good, but a decent role player. And now it's Lauri Markkanen. I don't think he's very injury prone, but he's I don't know if he can really keep up what he did last year. That's my only question. Can he do it? Because if he can, great. This team is going to be a lot better than the 14th seed in the West. Probably. They're only the 14th seed because another team is the 13th seed that has a situation going on right now. We'll see what happens with that. But that's another situation, another conversation for one of the next days. Point being, I'm just wondering if Lauri Markkanen is going to be able to keep that up. If he can, great. But if he can't, I don't know about this team, man. And then there's also the question about John Collins, how he'll fit on this team. Because when John Collins was at his best, that was really in 2021 with the Hawks when they made that conference finals run. And Trae Young and John Collins were both cooking that year. And we had that lob duo, Trae Young lobbing it up to John Collins and dunks. And John Collins is doing great. He was hitting threes, playing defensively, and getting the post. He was cooking, man. And then he did get an injury in his hand, I think, which ruined his shot. And overall, he was in trade talks with the Hawks for like the past how long? 2 years. Ever since after that 2021 run, he's been in trade talks. And now it finally happened, and he's on a new team. And this is a very different team from the last one because there's not really a primary playmaker. I mean, they have guys who can handle the ball, but they don't really have a 100% guy like the Hawks, because the Hawks had Trae Young. So I'm wondering how he's gonna play in a system where there's no number one point guard guy. And I mean, it could be a huge success and John Collins could open up his game even more, but it also could be a huge fail where John Collins is limited by the fact that he doesn't have a pure point guard. Because Colin Sexton is good, Chris Dunn is good, even Taylor Horton-Tucker, they're all good, but none of them are really pure point guards who I'd consider to like be the leaders and playmakers and floor generals, you know what I'm saying? So John Collins doesn't have that anymore. So I'm wondering how he's going to react to that. How will he play? We'll see. Hopefully he does well, but we'll see. And then there's the question about young players that I always have with a team that has tons of young talent. I've asked it every single day of this whole series so far. Will some players get lost in the shuffle? I hate it, but not every young player with potential ends up being like that. And when you look at this team, looking at the young players specifically, you got Walker Kessler, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Ochai Agbaji, Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Bryce Sensabaugh, and most of those guys are coming off the bench. And I think Walker Kessler 100% is going to be like that. He's a big man. He doesn't really have much competition. I mean, he has Kelly Olynyk, but it's Kelly Olynyk. He doesn't have much competition at his position for to really like take away his minutes. But when you look at the wing and guard positions, that's why I'm wondering, like, will these players get lost in the shuffle? One guy I definitely think is going to get lost in the shuffle. I mean, Ochai Agbaji, I watched a video about him during this offseason and about his catch and shoot ability, and I really saw he is actually like that from three. I was not watching Jazz games, I'm not gonna lie, and I did not know that he was hitting them joints, but apparently he was. And I mean, he's still young. That was his first year. Was that his rookie year? He was doing pretty good for his rookie year. And especially now that he's going to be the backup and going to have more opportunity, I was thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be great. But then Keontae George comes on the team. And you also have Taylor Horton-Tucker who's there who needs guard minutes. And if Bryce Sensabaugh plays, I don't know if he's going to play coming into it immediately, but it's not looking 100%. I'm not very confident in the fact that Ochai Agbaji will have a big jump this year. Because although he can play without the ball, his biggest impact is from his shooting ability. And when he isn't getting as many shots as he should, he's not going to have as big of an impact. And he'll get less minutes. And then he might get lost in the shuffle. So that could be a problem. There are guys like Bryce Sensabaugh who I think may start the season either getting a lot less minutes or maybe playing in the G League a bit. Because he was a late first-round pick. He's not like these other guys who are like near lottery or lottery picks. He was late in the first round. So I could see why they would definitely put him, like bench him or put him in the G League. But I definitely hope they give minutes to Taylor Hendricks and Keontae. Because those two are probably my favorite rookies in this entire draft class. And I really want them to succeed, man. I really want them to succeed. And that's honestly mainly all I have to talk about. I mean, overall, just looking at this team, I didn't even tell you my prediction for them. I have them going 28-54 and getting the 14th team in the West. And I really do like this team. But it's just, I don't think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be good. It's the same thing. The Spurs, this team is definitely better than both the Spurs team and the Wizards team. Especially with the young talent. I really like the young talent a lot more on this team. It's just, I don't know if they're going to be good. That's the question. Will they actually be able to, will Lauri be able to replicate what he did last year? Will John Collins fit well into this team? And will the rookies live up to the hype that I'm giving them? Because all the hype, that's one thing about the rookies. And especially in this draft class specifically. All the hype is really going to Victor Wembanyama and then a little bit to Scoot Henderson. And most of the other guys are getting completely forgotten about. So I'm wondering if that will give these players an opportunity to take that jump and improve their games and kind of like quietly rise and become great. And Keontae George is definitely one of those guys who can do that, and Taylor Hendricks as well, and even Bryce Sensabaugh. I love all these rookies so much. The Jazz, in my opinion, definitely won the draft. They were one of my favorite drafting teams. One of the two teams I think definitely won the draft. But yeah, overall, this team isn't going to be good. Walker Kessler, we can still definitely see a lot more from him. Because I never expect anything in second years from second year guards. I don't really expect much. So Jaden Ivey, Ben Mathurin, and all those guys, Shane Sharp, I don't really expect them to be hooping this year. I mean, if they do, that's great, but I don't expect them to be amazing. I don't have high hopes for them. But when you look at a guy like Walker Kessler, he's a big man. His role isn't as much scoring, so he's just, all he does is stay in the post, block shots, and get rebounds. I mean, he'll get some points every once in a while, but his main role is to play defense, and that's probably his biggest asset. So I can see Walker Kessler 100% having a much better year than last year. Kind of similar to what Evan Mobley did last year, because if you look at the two guys, well, Cade Cunningham got injured, but if you look at the other guys in that draft class, Scotty Barnes in his second year, he did not do great. I mean, he wasn't horrible, but he didn't do as good as he did in his rookie year, at least numbers-wise. Actually, I don't know. I didn't look at the stats completely, but I did research, but I didn't do scouring Basketball Reference for 24 hours. You get the point. Walker Kessler, I think he definitely can have an improved sophomore season, but I don't have high hopes for anybody coming to their sophomore year. I don't have high hopes for any of these young players or any of these teams. I like them a lot, but I just don't know how good they're going to be, especially in a competitive Eastern Conference and Western Conference like we have right now, where any team can make the play-in, any team can fall out the playoffs, just like the Mavericks did last year. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But I have this team at the 14th seed. It's sad for me to say because it's just, I feel bad about saying it, but just with the amount of talent in this conference right now, it's hard to put them any higher. So that's about it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment down below and tips or topics you have me to talk about on the channel. More season previews coming soon, and yeah, that'll be it today. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.